Hello. It's another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time covering 28.6 from Worm. Arc 28, Cockroaches. Hey Vic, hey Greg. Vic says, fellas, is this gay? And then I have to assume is referring to the art here. You know, for the shipping reasons, we're gonna go with yes. But Tattletale specifically tells the story not to tell anybody about this because people might get ideas. So, I don't know, she never says those ideas are unfounded. Vic says, oh no, I got ideas. It didn't work. That thing that Tattletale was saying, we still got the ideas. Vic says, and Taylor was like, she thinks the Seamerg thinks we're gay? Yeah, they were hugging while an older woman looked on, coldly. I don't know. Strange stuff. As the reminder for the audience participation question, it was, do you think there are any capes who should just retire? If yes, who? And we don't need a comprehensive list, although I'm not opposed to such a thing. So, for themes, I put interpersonal bonds. This next one's more metaphorical than direct, but like last rites, Taylor kind of leaving that note to Miss Militia feels very like my last will and testament kind of thing. Like she's like, I want there to be people who remember me. And then, generally, like, going around and, like, trying to collect herself before everything. And then sitting over Tattletale. I think that all lends into what I was thinking there. And then identity. Of course, Taylor is still conflicted and doesn't know, how to feel or who to be. I hadn't looked at the speed draw before. I'm really like impressed with that. Like, it all comes together so perfectly. Like I didn't even just think about the process of how you would have gone about the layering in of the grass. And I liked when you plotted out the ominous shadow before. Vic says, thanks, grass is annoying. Yeah, I would imagine. Finished image. Okay, so, yes. On to the chapter. The opening of the chapter sort of meanders around the topic, but it's time for them to split up and see who the Seamerg follows. When Tattletale asks Taylor if she's ready, she shakes her head no, and then there's like 2 pages of introspection before Aisha starts talking to move the conversation along again. Taylor's mind wanders to the beauty of the field of grass they're in. Oh, cute. and then thinking of all the possibilities that are like multiplied by having like new worlds they can explore, and like more or less uninhabited places on like a mass scale. And suddenly Taylor feels this like call of the void style thought that she compares to like your standard leaping from a rooftop or cliff's edge, what have you, kind of thought. And uh she's thinking to herself, what if I just left, walked away? And she had been presented with this idea of capes, both the idea that capes do retire and the idea that capes don't retire. With the story about Gru going off to stay at a cabin with Cozen, and then with Shadow Stalker being like, capes never retire, etc. But in very broad strokes, Taylor mentally reviews how she got here, and is thinking about being an introvert who never gets time to herself unless she's like wallowing in a prison cell. Um, and then one of her main concerns, if she just goes to be alone, is that she won't be able to make herself rejoin the fight. And Taylor more or less thinks about how it would be a relief if she just got suddenly wiped out by Scion at some point without even realize it was about to happen. She doesn't quite go that far, but it feels like that's implied. Dying in a flash, possibly unawares. So Taylor decides that she can't really go to be alone, and she's got like tethers keeping her here, such as Rachel. And no doubt Rachel had seen the scrunched up, clenched body language of Taylor. She's like literally clenching her teeth. But then Rachel bumps Taylor off her balance as a supportive action, and then Taylor stumbles herself into leaning into Rachel and makes sure not to disrupt this moment of closeness. Yet again, as Vic might ask, fellas, is this gay? Anyway, so they are, they're having a nice moment. She's grateful for her connection to Rachel. And then Aisha breaks the sort of tension from Taylor earlier, shaking her head no, that they're not ready. And she just starts going on and on this total tangent, describing the end of the movie Air Bud. And then she tells them the story through the lens of like looking back to her childhood, sneaking movies on TV while there was no parental supervision, like Saturday mornings, and then the others are all they're unimpressed by this story. They're like, "Where are you going with this?" And Aisha tells them about how she had wanted her expectations to be subverted in these movies and for there to be a bad end. And then that relates back to this situation where they have an evil Airbud. And, you don't want the bud to be following you. Unlike when he played basketball. Although I gotta tell you, even without telekinesis, I bet the Seamerd could hoop. She's 15 feet tall. Vic says, nobody appreciates Aisha like I do. Greg said, air bad, if you will. And then Vic says, she needs funnier friends. Friend? Funnier friend. It's true. And when they finally do split up, when they're like, we gotta do this, then they all go in 4 separate directions, and the Seamerg does like a showy turn and air dash type of move. All her wings like flap behind her as she zooms towards Tattletale. Taylor describes how like expressive the Seamerg can be, and how her like largest wings looked like they were giving a dismissive wave at the world. And then we get, of course, a classic Tattletale reaction where she just says, "Fuck me," and then she just yells it. Very, very articulate. Taylor's feeling real weird about this. She's like split because she's like, oh no, it's following Tattletale, so it's like she's doomed. But then she also, she's able to justify like, oh, Tattletale was the one communicating with her, and Tattletale is a thinker, and she's the leader of the Undersiders, etc. And then, Vic says, it's like Taylor just realized she's a freak. Yeah, it kind of is. And then she's like, but I wanted the Seamerg to follow me. I wanted her to pick me for the dance. And then, she's like, oh no, what does that say about me that I wanted the Endbringer to follow me around? But she wanted to, multi-threaded argument, she wanted to bear the burden, Atlas-like, intentional Atlas, that's what they call her. And then, in addition, she wanted this to give her like purpose and power on the battlefield. She reminds us that her power to control a bug has not so far proven useful against Scion, having a lot of good power stacked in one. So far, bugs, minimal. And then, the final thing is that she thought that would be another tether tying her to feel necessary to the fight so she doesn't lose herself. So she's like, look, if it was gonna be anybody, it's gotta be me. I'm the main character of the book. So, and she's right. She is the main character of the book. Let's see here. So, she's thinking about how big of a problem Scion is. He can move all the places through the dimensions, and even within a dimension very quickly. He's basically untouchable by most powers, and he can dish out like ridiculous amounts of damage, and in like huge area, and wide array of ways that he can do things, really. But the scale of their enemy makes Taylor go have an existential crisis and feel very small, again, like a bug. And then she tries to do a relaxation technique that Jessica taught her. She's still worried every 5 seconds that everything's a Seamerg plan, and that she's being too paranoid, and that they're all doomed. Normal Taylor thoughts, so it's barely like the Seamerg's here at all. And then, Tattletale feels some kind of way, and it says that she has feigned confidence, but I feel like this is one of those, she's feigning, but not hard enough. She's failing to feign. And then, Taylor's like, oh no, she can tell. She can tell I'm a little freak that wanted the Endbringer to follow me. And this only makes Tattletale grin wider than before. You know, she's having a laugh. And then you know, Tattletale says for them to go get their stuff and get ready and whatever, and that she'll hang out because she can't go places now that there's an old Seamerg following her. And then we get some comedy. You know the drill, Scotty. Take me home from Imp. And then Rachel just gives a yeah and gets a portal also. But they don't go together. They go to two separate places. And then Taylor offers to Tattletale to stay here, but instead she's told, you've got to go. And this is where Taylor gives a Tattletale. Lisa. When's the last time she said Lisa? Who even can remember in their hearts? Probably not for years. And then Tattletale's joking about how she has company with the Seamerg, who, you know, now the Seamerg's doing bits. She's like varying her like halo around her, formed of whatever guns. Whatever she's doing, she's probably putting imagery in the back of the mind of you know, any possible people, whether it be Taylor and Tattletale or Tattletale's minions, you know, etc. And then yeah, so they agree as always that they're gonna go down fighting, and then you know, it's very grim, but Tattletale's always grinning through all the pain, as it were. She thinks that they'll take Scion down with them even if he destroys them all. And then Taylor's like, I think we got this. I think I got this. She keeps saying things like, I think we can take him down. She definitely means I think I can take him down. And then Tattletale's like, good, I got you to be positive again by being so negative. That's what I was doing. And then Taylor gets a little suspicion and starts asking questions. And she thinks that Tattletale's deflecting, you know, when she's saying there's no secret stuff that she definitely doesn't need to know, etc. And then she's like, tell me whatever secret you know. And Tattletale's like, Scion can use Contessa's power. Not all the time like Contessa, but he can use it. So we're probably hosed. And then she's like, oh, that is bad. That's quite a big deal. And then Taylor's like, she's like asking if Tattletale's sure, and then Tattletale's like, yeah, I don't think it has any blind spots as well, like Contessa has the blind spot of Scion and the Endringers, etc. And Tattletale gets worried that Taylor's gonna flip the fuck out, and says she has hard to read body language. And this is when Taylor says, I don't really flip out. And then Tattletale holds back from going, girl. Because she does flip out. Vic says, Taylor is me this scene. What do you mean? Uh, yeah, Vix never flipped out. It's never happened. Not once. And then, immediately, Taylor's like, yeah, I knew she was talking about when I killed Alexandrian Tag. And then she goes, I don't flip out around my friends. Um, uh, I've never killed Alexandria. Shh. Yeah, the perfect defense. You just say that you haven't done whatever you did. That's how it works, right? Um, and then, Taylor, um, Taylor feels like calm. Uh, it's like I said a couple chapters ago. Like Taylor is at the like panic event horizon to where she's like zened past the panic, and she's like, I know he has the ultra best power, but every power has a weakness. And then Tattletale points out, a power that lets you win automatically is kind of hard to circumvent. Hard, but not impossible. Is it odd that I almost feel more optimistic? Yes, exceedingly. And then Tattletale wants to know more, and she basically brings up the fact that in the past they have found even some of the strongest powers and power combinations, like the way that Butcher's power incorporates more and more, like that proved to be a weakness to Cherish because she was already like mentally being dragged in all these directions. So Cherish was able to get her to kill herself. Um, uh, which it's still unclear to me if the powers would have known to bounce the like Butcher brain power thing onto Cherish, or whether it would have been like, no, killing yourself ends the line, kind of thing. Because either sort of fits the game logic of the shards. Anyway, and then they talk about using Echidna's ability to absorb dead matter for when they trapped her within Coil's base initially, which was like a medium success. I don't think that was it's not the killer app she's thinking it is. Not like the Butcher thing, which was actually really helpful. Um, and then Tattletale basically um talks about how most of them with the really good powers have like intentionally like very limited scope versions of the power, or like their powers can't work directly against Scion or the Endbringers, etc. Um, and then that Scion doesn't have any of these limiters, and that's why she's bringing it up. And then uh, Taylor's like, we've got to create an inconceivable scenario that circumvents this, and they don't know how that's going to work yet. She thinks the Endbringers are like a game piece in their favor that he wouldn't have expected them to win over. And this is when Tattletale says, not enough. And when she says Cauldron 2, she notices Tattletale's body language. She shakes her head a little too forcefully. And uh, she's right when she says they've caused as many problems as they've fixed for Cauldron. Like, yeah, there's so much like problematic bullshit, like infighting, all caused by what they've done, and etc. We talk about it all the time. And then suddenly Taylor's like, oh no, Lisa's in trouble. um she says, Tattletale. I grabbed her hand with both of mine. Stop. um she froze like a deer in the headlights. Stop, I said again. I pulled her into a hug. Oh my god. um yeah, she hadn't picked up on it before, but Tattletale had been scared and hiding it. hiding it too well. And then, you know, she remembers that Lisa's shorter than her now, and she's like, I'm the big dog. No, Tattletale's mumbling about how great Scion's powers are. And then despite this, Taylor's still like, there are options. There are always options. And you know, she brings up like a minor point that he didn't like the swarm decoys, etc., and he didn't like duplication of any sort. Hatred, duplication, all kinds. And then Tattletale's like, okay, fine. I'm just in a bad mood, and I hate the Seamerg, and, you know, I'm so pissed off. I used to not care what happened to anyone, and now I care what happens to everyone, and I can't do anything. Ah! She's an upset Valley girl right now. And then, you know, Taylor thinks about trying to comfort Tattletale in some ways, and then she thinks the phrase, but I couldn't bullshit a bullshitter. And that she can't lie to Tattletale about, you know, whatever. And then she's like, I don't know who someone like Tattletale turns to for support. Hashtag not me, she thinks. They hug for a whole minute, you know. And then they turn away from each other real quick. Tattletale had some crying and strategic crying. And then, you know, having seen these crying eyes, Taylor jokes about having the goggle lenses to hide her eyes. And then Tattletale quips about how they can't have too many lenses or they'll look like one of those terrible themed teams that no one wants to be on. And this is when Tattletale looks up to the Seamerg and says, you don't tell anybody about this whole hugging business. Everyone thinks we're lesbians anyway. Vic says, she's wrong. Theme makes it better. It depends. When I think of some of the themed teams that we actually see in the story, I'm like, yeah, their costumes kind of suck. Because I think of like the Japanese hero team that basically just all dressed up like standard Power Ranger guys. And it's like, that is too static. It's too one note. You need to have like more going on than that. But there's like no cohesion to the Undersiders team theme. They're like they have eclectic costume tastes, like Frasier's living room. How you know, they're just putting a bunch of high quality pieces together and hoping it works. Vic says, don't overdo it like the Yangban. Yeah, also not like them, because they all dress identically, which is even worse than color-themed Super Sentai hero-style costumes. At least with color-themed ones, you can kind of tell something. What are we looking at here? Yeah, so, you know, she's telling the Seamerg not to out her as a secret one who hugs Taylor. And then you know, Taylor totally gets her ass, feeling like it's okay at this point to start you know, jokey trash talking, and she tells Tattletale, "You and the Sea Merc are a good fit after all, fucking with people's heads." And then Tattletale is like sending her away, but saying she can come back to hang out later if she needs to. And Tattletale's gonna take over. It says looking after dragon stuff, so assumedly a bunch of comms style work. And then finally Taylor gets the hell out of here. And then she sort of walks. I mean, she's teleported to walking distance and walks to where Charlotte and Forrest are, and there's still orphan kids even though it's several years later, and they sort of have a conversation with her. She didn't use her flight pack here because she's trying to conserve battery. But in a minute she will use her flight pack because she'll be all emotional. And when you suddenly get all emotional, you got to get the hell out of there, flight pack style, before anyone can talk to you or look at your eyes. And you're like, but you're wearing lenses. They can't even see that you're crying, Taylor. And she's like, oh, they can tell though. No, I kid. Yeah, they're living in the sort of main secondary world they have, Earth Gimel, which they have that initial portal from Arc 19. And they're living just in the woods where they can't be seen directly from the outside. And they sort of compare it. They're saying that it's in the normal Brockton Bay, it would overlook the boat graveyard, but obviously the general Brockton Bay has not taken shape on this other side yet. It's just wasn't large enough to reach all that way. And then they have like dog yards and stuff. It's pretty clear this is like a place that Rachel would be involved in managing. But yeah, she sees Charlotte and feels like Charlotte looks like a mid-20s girl instead of like a late teens girl, and she's like seeing that she's got a gun and stuff now, so Charlotte's maybe not the pacifist she once was. And then, Taylor shows her human face and puts on glasses. You can't show them your human face. They'll see you crying. And then, let's see here. When Charlotte asks how bad, Taylor thinks, my dad? It's kind of... It's funny how, like, quick she's jumping to stuff like that, but she doesn't, like, respond to the question. She just goes, And then, Charlotte clarifies. She's like, overall situation. Taylor's like, oh, the world's ending. Yeah, it's as bad as it gets. And then she looks around and sees some of the children she recognizes. She's like, Aiden was missing. I wonder where Aiden is. I don't know. She says hi to these children. And apparently she gets a shy wave and some shuffling feet. And then Charlotte's like, it's fine. They're intimidated because you're famous. I kept showing them all these clips of you. And she's like, oh dear God, they've seen the clips. she can feel mortified at any given time. It's one of her main emotions. Mortified embarrassment. There's baby goats, and Charlotte, as idle conversation, explains that they can, Tattletale's been giving goats to people so that they can get milk, yogurt, cheese, and even meat. And then, Taylor walks over and pets the goat for a second, has a kind of a nice little petting zoo time. And then she feels like out of place, and she's like, I gotta go. I feel, oh my God. And Charlotte's like asking about she says lots of crazy rumors flying around, and I think this is fun dialogue here. Taylor says, all true, I suspect. And she thinks to herself in italics, I don't want to talk about that stuff. And this seems to translate to Charlotte as though she had said it aloud. But she, goes on. Taylor describes that they're mustering forces. They've stopped some of the people who are fighting them. And Charlotte, like back in the day after they defeated the Slaughterhouse 9, you say that so matter-of-factly. It was very matter-of-fact, I responded. Yeah, I really like the dialogue in this chapter. And then, they sort of fall into an awkward silence, and then they sort of point out what the goats are named, and Taylor remembers sort of some personality traits of these orphans, and then she feels odd that there's no excitement that she's there, but she's like, I don't know what I even expected. And then Forrest comes in, and the kids do have more of a better reaction. They like Forrest, and then he has a good reaction to Taylor. He thinks Taylor's here to see if they had taken a deal from Cauldron, who had rolled on through and offered everybody a free vial. And they said that they did not take the deal. And then Taylor's like a little surprised. Apparently they had been through about an hour ago. She confirms Dr. Mother was one of the people. And then Charlotte sort of dissembles a bit here. She's like, oh, well, it's, she sounded convincing. I don't know why I didn't agree, etc. And then Forrest says something that Taylor thinks is kind of conflicting with this, saying, Charlotte and I talked it over, and we agreed it isn't for us. So Taylor's like, why are they telling me two different stories? And it's like, because Charlotte's trying to spare your feelings. And she realizes she's the reason they refused. She gives them an out. She says it's easier to want to be a cape, to want powers when you haven't seen the actual outcomes. And then they're like, yeah, you get it. And then Charlotte is basically like, I don't want powers. And then Forrest basically thinks about, he's only interacted with powers like 2 times, and one of the times was the part where he fought Mannequin with Taylor. And then Taylor does think about how she thinks that Forrest would make a really good cape, and he's got the kind of grit that she wants. But Forrest is like, I don't know, it just seems like I wouldn't be better than the next guy. And then Taylor's like, wow, I haven't said anything in like a long time, and they've been talking for a while. And so she reassures them that they made the right choice and brings up the idea that they could have mutated into monsters. And then they also say that she mentioned that. But I like that they weren't like, we didn't want to mutate into monsters. They were like, we didn't want to be like, you. We knew we could mutate into physical monsters, but we were more concerned about, like, having a personality, like your person. Ooh, I didn't mean to say it like that. So she's, like, saying that she wanted to check in on them. And when she's asking about it stuff, Charlotte and Forrest are basically both reassuring her that she's, that they have enough for like a while. And then when Forrest asks what she means by a while, she's like talking on the order of decades. And then after a pause, he reassures her that they have enough to last as long as they need. And I think they're all on the same page, that it's sort of like a little bit of theater of like, they're just saying everything's all good. Vic says, clearly they don't want stuff for decades, Taylor. The meat will spoil. Yeah, definitely the main concern. I would imagine that things are just so tumultuous that there is not really like they may have a foothold and a footing, with Tattletale, assuming everything goes well, but like you can't really say we have enough supplies for X amount of time, because who knows if there's another like planet cracker attack like he used to like crack the foundation under Brockton Bay and like various other places along the east coast. He could just like shatter Gimmel's Brockton Bay the same way he had done the other. And then suddenly they don't have any resources. But they're like, yeah, we'll be fine. Everything's fine. Charlotte, gives her a final hug goodbye. Forrest shakes a hand, and then as Taylor is out of physical human earshot, but within bug shot, then she hears the truth from Mai that Charlotte had said their money isn't any good, and it seems clear to her that this was a charade by Charlotte, for her benefit, to try and she thinks that Charlotte knows she's still in bug hearing range, and says, we owe her everything. That's enough in the big picture. Yeah. And then she says, doorway, please. Fassetti, which I have to imagine is like the company Glenn works at or something. Vic says, Taylor takes this like a good thing. I would have been like, hold on a minute, Charlotte. I think that Taylor accepts what Charlotte is trying to do for her, and by going with it, she is honoring what Charlotte wants anyway. That's how it feels to me. But anyway, then we get a page break, and Glenn is greeting her. Oh, it's very pleasant. They like each other. He refers to her as an old student. She's like, student? And he's like, everyone I worked with learned from me. And he's delightful. Glenn admits that he may be conceited, and then Taylor's like, look, at this point, since you can back it up, you get to be conceited, and it's fun, and we're having a good time. Whereas before, when I thought you were conceited, but not good at your job, then I was pissed off. Um, and then Quinn Kaye is here. It's like, what? My old lawyer? What? And then he's looking. He's described as both disheveled, but also like hot guy. So she's like, he was a super sexy, disheveled hot guy. Um, she's surprised that Quinn Kaye is here. He is working with Glenn on a project where they're basically like doing what Dragon did for the birdcage, except for non-birdcage inmates, and they're trying to release as many people as they can to help. Um, and they sort of balance each other out because Glenn knows about a bunch of villains and stuff from working in the PRT, but also from making costumes for all types of capes, especially in the last year and a half since he's been like blackballed from working with most heroes by the PRT. And then he's the reason he's balancing out Quinn Kaye is because they are worried that he'd be too forgiving with his clients. And then so Taylor thinks about how they're building up their forces. Glenn assumes that Taylor's here to thank him for his contributions, and Mr. Kaye is he's busy joking about being like, oh, I'm not offended at all that you came to thank the fashion designer before you came to thank me. No, nothing bad about that. And then she crosses the room and kisses him on the cheek. Oh my God. She's shooting her shot. No, I'm kidding. But she apologizes and thanks him, and since he's seen her do a double murder, he plays it pretty cool. He's just like keeps doing his work, and he's like let's see here. Glenn takes over the conversation, but he's saying that he keeps getting a slow trickle of people telling him that finally, in these final hours, they understand Glenn and how important what he taught them was. And then let's see here. We get some backsass from Kaye, but then Glenn is like, Taylor's my ultimate student because she thought I was good at my job before the end of the world, not just after the end of the world. And then we get a joke here how, oh, it's a shock that you weren't really good at being a hero. And then Glenn both says that he tried, and very, very classy, he extends the nod. He says that Taylor tried as well. So even though she wasn't that good at being a hero, she was doing her best. And then when Taylor says that she doesn't think heroics work in this world, then Glenn gets upset. And then they start talking about Chevalier and how he's he's keeping his injuries right now so that he can do the admin work, and then he's going to get like healing from maybe like Amy, like some other source of fast healing as soon as he's needed for like a battlefield kind of thing. But and Glenn's talking about how clever that is, and that Taylor's clever for recognizing what was going on as well. And then we get one of those random double names. Some admin worker is named Carol. It's definitely not our Carol. My girlfriend Brandish. But my older girlfriend Brandish. Let's see here. And this is when Mr. Kaye, he's being bad. He sees this secretary lady and he finger gun bang, and then Glenn's like, ugh, and then he's like, I gotta do what I want because I'm hot, and then he's like, ugh, and that makes it worse. And then they're Kaye's like, we all have our vices, and then Glenn does a subversion bit. He's like, I do love show tunes. Vic said, my elderly girlfriend. No, I think actually I'd have to go to like the end of Ward for her to be older than me. Now that I think about it, because she was like such a young mom. Oh no, I'm as old as the Mills. Um. Let's see here. Yes. So they look at Uber's file. They talk about him for a minute. Apparently, Leet got myrtled. And then Uber got together with Circus, and then Uber, went too far and was in prison, but he wasn't in the birdcage, and they're gonna let him free. Taylor says that they should have him be a doctor, basically. Um, there's all the thing about like not knowing how exactly his power works, but it does seem as though he would be pretty good at doctoring. And then Glenn's worried about like a situation like where Accord got killed, / Cody attacked people, where with the wrong person on the loose, they will just something bad will happen. Something, and then the Seamer got our ass. Boop, boop, boop. And then Glenn's been missing Taylor. He's like, you're pretty cool. Mr. Kaye is like, it's true. We're all three badasses and cool. And then Glenn's like, so you came here for a reason. And then Taylor's like, I need to figure out who I am. I'm closer than before, comma, maybe, ... Unclear. And then the two dudes are like, we've seen a bunch of people change at these pivot points in their life, usually when they like get arrested or whatever. And then they're like, is the real thing like the you before or the you after this pivot point? And they're like, I don't know. That's a good question still. And then I really like this point. Take it for what it is, Glenn said. You're very scary when angry. Perhaps now is the time to be angry? Being angry at Scion is like raging against a natural disaster, I said. It doesn't understand. It doesn't react. My screams are drowned out in the chaos. You weren't screaming when you attacked Alexandria, Mr. Kaye commented. In fact, I remember you were very quiet. I think that part is great. Like, oh man. Oh. Can you guys believe it? I like Worm. Yeah, just like hitting on all cylinders with the dialogue. But Glenn's cheering her on more. Taylor agrees to what he's saying about embracing all of herself. And then Glenn's like, you won't have to put up the facade anymore because you'll just be kind of your authentic self, and not be worried about covering things up. And then this is a good time for them to break the meeting because another member of the ward shows up to talk to Glenn. And then they say goodbye, and Taylor bails. Glenn goes, goodbye, Taylor. You, Weaver, Skitter, and the strategist all give 'em hell, understand? For all of us who can't be on the front lines. And then she goes to Miss Militia after this. Um, she's at like a children's party for wards and for villain-ish teenagers. And they're watching some shitty dog movie. And Rachel keeps being pissed off because they keep changing dog actors from like cut to cut in the same scene, and Aisha's just telling her to pretend to. Well, she says the word pretend, but she means you need to suspend your disbelief. And then there's she looks around the room, seeing various kids. There are Alex siblings, the heartbroken, and then there's like a bunch of different wards she recognizes and some she didn't. And Aiden, weird, huh? And Aiden, that's weird. Why is he here with all these wards and Miss Militia and Aiden? Huh? And then Taylor had sort of wanted to talk to Miss Militia, but she doesn't want to like interrupt anything or be in the way. And she likes that they have a moment to watch whatever crappy movie they're watching instead of thinking about how the world is ending. And then Taylor, having had her notepad with her, because she's a nerd, she writes this letter, which I will read the contents herein. Miss Militia, once upon a time, I wanted to be a hero. On the night I changed my mind, the same night we attacked the fundraiser, I was going to write you a letter. I suppose it's time I finish it. It wasn't an easy letter to write then, and it's not any easier to write now, for very different reasons. I wasn't a good hero, and I use the past tense there because I can't genuinely call myself a hero at this point. I've been visiting people tonight, and I suspect I might visit others tomorrow if circumstances allow. Thanking those who need thanking, making sure that maybe there's a legacy, someone to remember me if we all make it through this. When I was a hero, when I did it right, I think I was emulating you and Chevalier. Looking back, I can imagine that maybe things would have turned out okay if I'd joined the wards, because you would have had my back. I can't say I regret what I've done, but I can't say I don't, either. Sorry. Don't let me waste your time. All I wanted to say was thank you. Thank you for having my back when it counted. Taylor Hebert. Oh, that's so sweet. She's being so vulnerable and using her words instead of a bug. Well, then she uses a bug. She folds it up and she delivers it to Miss Militia with a bug, and then she goes back to Tattletale. She realizes she had spent like an hour total talking to people, and then like went back to Tattletale. She's like, I just gotta be next to the Seamerg. Vic says, using her words instead of murdering Alexandria. I never lash out. She yells in Mickey voice. So yeah, she thinks about how she had left out some important people on this list of people she should have been visiting, such as her dad. She thinks about how she's a coward and she can't face trying to go to her dad and her dad being dead before this crucial moment. And believe me, she will find a series of crucial moments to continue to not ask the question of whether Danny is really dead or not. They're at some secure building with like bulletproof glass, and she's in Tattletale's room, and she finds Tattletale is asleep. She's been crying in her sleep and murmuring in her sleep, and the Seamerg's basically been working on her. Taylor sits on the couch, and then she starts talking to the sleeping Tattletale a little bit. Nobody really left for me but you guys. Everyone else has moved on. And then burp, burp, burp. She's like starting to hear a lullaby, and then she's like, damn it, it's the goddamn Seamerg. And she walks over, she touches the bulletproof glass stuff, she sees the guards and the Seamerg, and then she's like, oh man, that damn Seamerg, still working on her tinker stuff. And then she says, stop. And then the Seamerg stops. And then the silence was deafening. No noise in the area, no wind, no people. And then she starts to feel paranoid about if the lullaby was louder than she thought. And then she hears, in her own voice, but from the Seamerg's mind to hers, I'm sorry. Which I think is meant to evoke most of all the Dinah note, the cut ties, I'm sorry, but in Taylor's voice. And then, she uses her telekinesis to creepily work on Tinker's stuff. And then she looks her eyes right at Taylor's eyes. Taylor retreats to the couch and sits next to Tattletale and then proceeds to not sleep. Nothing bad ever happened because the Seamerg, and nothing bad ever will. That's what we learned in this chapter. That's the end of that, and that's the end of the Taylor chapters of this arc. Another great one. There's barely any fighting in this arc. This is one of the lowest fight densities. It's like an arc 2 situation where Rachel just kicks Taylor. In this case, it's like Seamerg blows up a Yangband guy, and then Leviathan has already blowed up Elite guy, and ladies. And then we see the Seamerg stab Leviathan, and those are the only KP fighty things. But yeah, lots of great table setting for what remains. And the next chapter is an interlude, and it's jam packed. So this arc of table setting will be capped off with us checking in with all sorts of different groups. And we've had like a Taylor goes to people montage, and then the next montage is basically like, let's see all the people Taylor didn't go to. So there's a lot of talking and setting up. And then let's see here, as far as arc stuff, like I said, final Taylor chapter during Cockroaches. The next arc is going to be called, it is Venom. Haunting. Well, let's move on to the characters. Of course, we start with our 4 Undersiders. We've got the Tattletale, Rachel, Taylor, Imp group. Vic says, Venom, like from Marvel Rivals. Yeah, exactly. It's this book is copying Marvel Rivals. The character Venom, who is from that originally and has been in no prior works. There's a moment, I didn't point it out as I was chaptering, but Aisha shoots Lisa an annoyed look when she brings up Gru being absent. So, I wonder. Tattletale has already had the weight of the world on her, much as a Taylor figure would, and she continues to be weighed down further by her burdens. I mean, Aisha and Rachel have the luxury of taking a moment to themselves and walking away, but Lisa's like, well, I guess I live with the Seamerg now. We're just on a sitcom for the rest of time. Oh, that Endbringer of mine. I wish the Endbringer following me didn't have a way to psychically manipulate people into turning crazy. Guess I'll just have to live with it. I think it's funny too that the Rachel and Aisha have found their way to the same like gathering as all those others. I guess the middle segment I'd want to talk about is the Charlotte, Forest, and Orphans section. That's right, they just get called orphans. It's very sweet. I'm with what Taylor does, not exactly what Vic would have thought of the situation. I'm like, I will take your gesture of goodwill, Charlotte. I will accept it and fold it into my strength because I know that you want me to fight. And then so yeah, Charlotte and Forrest, they're doing their best to put on a brave and smiling face. I think it's a good I think it's good to have these background characters that Taylor respects have made the decision to not get the cauldron formula. And then let's see here. Yeah, so then the orphans are not down with running up and hugging Taylor or anything. But that's okay. She only needed a hug from Charlotte anyway. And then we've got Quinn and Glenn. We're seeing all of our favorite normies. Jessica is mentioned earlier in the chapter, but not seen. So, but we're getting a lot of good normie mentions. We don't talk about one of our, not Taylor's faves, but the audience is faves. Pig-O. So sadly, Taylor doesn't have as warm a feeling toward her old nemesis as we do. And then yeah, so Glenn though, he's as boisterous as always. He's doing bits. Him and Kaye being in the same room allow them to sort of bounce off each other and multiply. And they're just trying to live it up a little bit while they're doing their job. They're trying to have a good time in these last moments of Earth. Quinn's being hot. Other Carol being a one scene random character. And then who else? Miss Militia and all of the kids. I think it's very sweet that Taylor gave this note to Miss Militia and tries to reassure her. So that's nice. And obvious further Aiden foreshadowing. Definitely has powers. And then what else we got? Thinking about Danny. She thinks about how she hasn't checked in on her dad, her almost certainly dead dad, and she's like, the more I don't check on him, the more certain I am that he's dead, and that if I find out that he's dead, that I'll freak out. Even though I don't flip out. Because trust me, guys, I never flip out. And yeah, I think that's all the main characters we're naming. Seamerg is more of a powers knowledge bit than like a character. Seamerg is just outside of being a full character. Yeah, so don't think I have anything more to say. I mean, there's a lot of individual wards named, etc. They just don't like do anything other than be watching the movie. It's like Vista, Kidwind, Crucible, a bunch of unnamed ones. Heartbrokens. But yeah, for powers knowledge, world building. Oh, I will say before we're out of the characters section, like this chapter, like having that small scene where they're watching the movie, it's just like so cozy. Um, it's a scene we needed. We needed to feel it in our hearts. I think because the book can be pretty grim. We don't get a lot of Taylor hugging Lisa. I can't believe all these wards are slacking off, says Victoria. While Taylor is carrying. Yeah. Yeah. Taylor's doing all the work. Like a stray Todd Margaret. She's like, do I have to do everything myself? Yeah, anyway, so moving to the powers. Obviously, the doorways have been super necessary, and they're just incorporating them very easily. Taylor's been thinking about power management on her flight pack and only uses it for such, battle reasons as running away from an emotional situation with people you used to live with in the Forest Charlotte scene. And then the Seamerg herself. I think we all have the instinct to know that Taylor was probably right, that she can probably basically work on people in the same way that, or a similar way to what the Psychic Scream does, without needing to actually use it audibly. So she seems to have been manipulating Tattletale as she sleeps, making her toss and turn, you know. So, nothing bad is going to happen from her warping Taylor and Lisa overnight. Nope. I think one of the only things that these protagonists have going for them is that the Seamerg is opposed to Scion. So while she's planning to do X, Y, and Z, she can't account for what he's going to do. So her plans can't be that. She can't go ham in the same way that she normally does. All right. I think I'm maybe done talking about powers, knowledge, and world building. I think I'm maybe at the audience participation part already. So, what I said here was, do you think there are any capes who should just retire? If yes, who? Vic wrote, Taylor! 2 exclamation points. She really needs to calm down. And then wrote, I think Eidolon Def should have retired before now. Greg says, teacher, the man just needs to stop. Perrin and Foyle should retire, buy a cottage, and absolutely fill it with stuffed animals. Yeah, these are some good examples. I think teacher's definitely not going to stop, for sure. Eidolon, it's too late now. Taylor, you've got a few chapters left. You could just stop. You were thinking about it all chapter. Yeah. Other capes who should retire. Greg said he won't, but he should. Yeah. You know, I think Anjanu could probably be happier if she just stopped being a cape. Could be. I don't know. Who knows? Oh, and Scapegoat. Scapegoat should retire. Because of, you know, he hates his power. I'll just quickly write Scapegoat. And then I was reading chapter 28.x, and I mean, this may just be a rhetorical question. That was me, like, being like facepalm, but the question is, how did Weld not see this coming? Kind of things we need to ask ourselves. So I'm going to. How long is the speed draw? I'm gonna start the speed draw. Give it a second before we start the music. Yeah. Well, maybe I'll just skip into it. I don't have enough to waffle on about, and yes. Start here. Okay. So we've come to the end of the stream. Fix this. Whoa, you didn't want to watch Each Blade of Grass? I did. Like, that's the problem, is I did want to watch Each Blade of Grass, and I decided to cut it shorter than that. Thank you, Greg. He says cheers for the stream, as often is said. And then the music you are hearing now is Extinction by ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. You can find all the links, including our Discord link, in the stream description and the channel description. You find Wildbow's Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow to support the author of the original work. The full audiobook the full text is free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and the full audiobook is free at audioworm.rain-online.org. And bye. So yes, I will talk to you all on the next one about chapter 28.x, the interlude.